In the world of the mafia, every name has weight, every handshake a test, every secret a death sentence waiting. This is Mob Stories, real tales from inside organized crime. Not the movie version, the one they never wanted told. We're covering 100 made men and their associates, the rise, the power, the blood they left behind. From Chicago to Sicily, Queens to Medellin, if they lived by the code, we're telling their story. Subscribe, because in this world, loyalty is rare and memory deadly. Brooklyn to Chicago, Alphonse Capone didn't come from power. He came from the gutter.
The king of the gangsters is about to get his, and a lot of Chicago folks are on hand at federal court for a last look at Scarface Al Capone before Uncle Sam puts him away.
Born in Brooklyn, 1899, the son of poor Italian immigrants. By his teens, Al was hustling on the corners, learning the street code. Money talks, fists convince, and fear gets you respect. He ran with the 5 Points Gang, a collection of young punks who would one day rule New York's underworld.
Alphonse Capone was America's first superstar gangster.
That's where Capone met his mentor, Johnny Torrio, a man who saw promise in the tough kid with a sharp mind and a mean right hook.
Al Capone realized that part of the secret to power was to control local governments, which he did by bribing officials.
A bar fight left Al with the scar that earned him the nickname Scarface. He hated it, said women loved him too much to care, but the mark became his legend. By 1919, Torrio called him to Chicago, a city ready to explode with opportunity. Prohibition had just begun, and liquor was about to become liquid gold. Blood and business. Chicago wasn't just a new city, it was a battlefield dressed in neon. Every corner had a boss, every cop had a price, and every night brought another gunshot echo. Capone learned fast. Power wasn't about bullets, it was about control.
Elliot Ness is portrayed as this fearless, incorruptible crime fighter.
He built alliances with smiles and broke them with silence. He paid off judges before breakfast and bought cops before they finished their drinks. His speakeasies overflowed while the law looked the other way for the right price. In a city drowning in booze and blood, Capone became its heartbeat. His enemies called him Ruthless. His friends called him untouchable. Every dollar he made dripped with someone else's blood. He dressed in silk but ruled with steel. And behind that grin, every move was a calculation, and every favor, a future debt. When the city slept, his trucks rolled. Every raid he survived made him a myth, every funeral a warning. Capone didn't just run Chicago, he owned its fear. Street kids carried his name like a prayer or a threat. Politicians toasted to his health behind closed doors. Even the priests whispered his name at confession, pretending they didn't. The city's skyline rose higher, but its soul sank deeper into his shadow. In the underworld, loyalty wasn't earned. It was bought, borrowed, and buried. By the time he took over Torrio's operation, Capone wasn't chasing power anymore. He was defining it. The bootleg empire. In Chicago, Torrio taught Capone the business of illegal booze, distribution, bribery, and the art of making enemies disappear. Capone watched, learned, and waited. When Torrio was gunned down by rivals and forced into retirement,
They didn't use the word terrorism, but gangsters were certainly terrorizing the city, and it was seen as a national crisis.
Capone, just 26 years old, inherited an empire. He moved operations to Cicero, outside the city's reach, and bought politicians like he bought cigars, by the box. He ran bootlegging, brothels, and gambling dens. By 1927, his empire made more than $100 million a year, billions today. He threw money around like confetti, drove armored Cadillacs, and tipped waiters with $100 bills. To the press, he played the part of a modern-day Robin Hood, handing out food to the poor. To his rivals, he was the devil in silk, smiling as he ordered the trigger pulled. Valentine's Day. By 1929, Capone's control of Chicago was nearly complete, except for one man, George "Bugs" Moran of the North Side Gang. The city wasn't big enough for both. On February 14, 1929, Moran's men gathered at a garage for what they thought was a shipment. Instead, 4 of Capone's gunmen, disguised as cops, lined them up and opened fire. 70 shots, 7 bodies. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre shocked America.
We do this in a matter where not everybody ends up dead. How do we do this in a way that doesn't draw the attention from the authorities?
Capone was vacationing in Florida, smiling for reporters, untouchable as ever. He'd planned it so well there was no evidence, no witnesses, no charges. But the public's love affair with Scarface was over. The Robin Hood mask was gone, replaced by the face of a killer. The fall of public enemy number one. Washington had had enough. President Herbert Hoover himself told the Treasury Department, "Get Capone." Not for murder, they could never prove that, but for something far simpler: taxes. While Capone flaunted custom suits and diamond watches, he hadn't paid a cent to the government.
Absolutely extraordinary. It was found out that Al Capone, not surprisingly, was bribing and intimidating jurors.
In 1931, federal agents charged him with tax evasion. 22 counts. He laughed, offered to settle, thought it was a game. But this time the game was rigged against him. In court, the jury saw ledgers, hidden income, and witnesses who finally dared to speak. The verdict, guilty. 11 years in federal prison. Capone went in as a king. He'd come out a ghost. Alcatraz in the end. Capone's first stop was Atlanta, but rumors spread of him bribing guards for luxury. The feds sent him somewhere new. Alcatraz, the Rock. No connections, no favors, no way out. The syphilis he'd ignored for years began eating his mind.
He's a publicity hound. He loves, being in the spotlight. He loves seeing his picture in the newspaper.
He'd pace his cell, humming songs, losing names and memories. By the late 1930s, he was barely coherent. In 1939, they released him, not as a free man, but as a broken one. He spent his final years on Palm Island, Florida, fishing quietly, his empire gone. On January the 25th, 1947, a stroke ended the reign of Scarface. He was just 48. Al Capone built an empire on fear and lost it to numbers on a tax form. He wanted power, fame, immortality. He got all three, just not the way he imagined. He remains the blueprint for every gangster that followed. The man who proved that in organized crime, the spotlight burns brighter than the throne. This has been another mob story, one of 100 tales of power, loyalty, and downfall. Subscribe now to Mob Stories, because the streets don't forget, and neither do we.